Colt 1911. This one here is a lightweight Commander, 9mm. I like it. It's a lot, one of my favorites. And here's a full-size government model. But wait, what is that? Series 80. Ugh, yuck. I'm sure you've heard that many times. I have heard it, and my journey through 1911s. You know what? I've heard that since the beginning. I'm neutral on it, to be honest with you. I'm gonna get that right out. I'm not for them, not really against them. They're not a deal breaker for me, but I'm going to show you a little bit on how to kind of understand what it is. Some people do understand it, and some people don't. All right, this is a vintage. This one even says Series 70 on it. You always hear that, Series 70, Series 70. Make sure it's a Series 70. This one's a vintage 1970s Mark IV. You know what? And it doesn't have the firing pin block. But I wonder if the collet barrel bushing has anything to do with it being called the Series 70, but that's another subject. All right, but we're mainly focusing on the firing pin block, which is, if you locate it, and you can pull the slide back on it when you go to check and clear it, there it is. It's a little button right there. And what that does is it moves out of the way so that you can see, here's another one. You can push on that, and it won't go in. You can see that, okay? But if I put my finger in there and depress it, now you can see the firing pin is allowed to protrude all the way. That's what that does. Kind of interesting, because if you look back, let's look at a Beretta slide. There's a Beretta 92. Hey, guess what? It's got a little gizmo right there that does the same thing. Let's get a little bit more modern. Here's a Glock. And yeah, I know, Glock. Oh, it's got the same gizmo there too. So it's kind of interesting how this is carried over to other firearms. But anyway, to understand what's going on there, what is that? How does that work? Well, let's grab the frame. Inside the frame here, you can see there's a lever right here. All right, now I'm going to hold the hammer back and depress the grip safety at the same time, if I can do that. Let's see there. Okay, and I'm going to pull the trigger, and you're going to see something happen. You see that? Lifts right up. That's the little switch that's coming up and running into that, and then allows it to the firing pin to go forward. Let's take a better look at it and understand what's going on inside. And those little parts in question are right here. All right, this is the way it's lined up. I'm going to give you I don't know if you've never seen the inside of a 1911, how it's staggered up. This is sear and disconnector, and that lines up just like that, and that's the pin that holds it all together. Okay, and then that's what's behind the hammer, or on the side of the hammer rather, like that. Okay, but I'm gonna move all this out of the way because that kind of clutters things up. All right, and you know what, just to even give you a better look at some stuff, I'm gonna grab the trigger out of this one here. Okay, grab the trigger, because the trigger bar is what's going on. All right, so when it's stacked up like this, all right, this is your trigger, and when the trigger is pulled, boop, it runs into right there, and then that tilts that, and then that cants upward out of the frame. That's what's happening here. This top area, this nose, is what you've seen pop up there from the trigger pull. So it's kind of like this little Rube Goldberg thing going on, bumping into that. That is then bumping into the bottom of that, camming that upwards to then depress that right there. The argument is that it adds to the trigger pull, yada, yada, yada. There are things you can do. Obviously, there's some polishing that you can do, on top surfaces, all these, anywhere contact surfaces that can be, polished lightly. Don't remove metal, but you can polish and do some things like there, taking the button out and, polishing that and stuff like that. Now, help us, maybe ease the trigger pull. Honestly, it's never really bothered me. I shot a lot. I was really into the high powers a lot. So as you guys know, high power trigger is pretty stiff. So anyway, but it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't really bother me. Now, some of the benefits of it, actually, let me grab this slide. If you're taking the firing pin out of your slide, it actually is kind of beneficial because check this out. I can actually push the button, push down into the firing pin, releasing the button, letting it go. And I would definitely not point that at yourself, even though it's captured. And with the thing, I'm going to slide the retaining plate off with it still pointed down because I don't trust it. I can now push this. You hear that thump because that's the firing pin now coming out. All right. So that's one of the, you could look at it as a benefit, and putting it back in is pretty much like the same kind of operation here. I push the buttons, get the pin going through there, and take my little poker and try doing this around a tripod is fun. Letting it go, and then there, it's now captured. Now I can take my little plate in the back and slide that back down. Now it's in place, and push the button, and now we're back in place. All right. So unless you're taking the frame down and apart and all that, and you're dealing with those extra pieces that do have to line up, which kind of make it a little bit of a pain in the butt because you have to line up all this stuff inside the frame. So that goes like that right there. And then obviously the hammer going like that. So now you got this little, operation going here like that, something like that, right? And you got your trigger bar going in there. So lining all that up can be somewhat of a pain in the butt. But if you get used to it, I can put them back together pretty easily. It doesn't really bother me. But anyway, I figured you might want to see what it is all about because, I'm sure like me, you've heard this all the time about the Series 80 gizmo stuff, and that's basically all it is, really, other than the firing pin block. Um, so you can argue, is it safer to carry or whatever, So, but there it is. Hopefully, it shed some light on it and understanding because, you know what? I mean, I've been into 1911s for, I don't know, 15, 16 years, something like that, not too long. And, I've always heard that. And usually it's, even from the beginning, I've heard that somebody told me, "Oh, you don't want that Series 80. That's crap," and all that. It doesn't deter me, as you can clearly see. I've got a couple of them here. Although yeah, I like the Series 70 for sure, but that's got a collet barrel bushing, and that's why they called it a 70. But it kind of got interpreted now into where if it's an 80 series, it's got this. If it's a 70 series, it doesn't. But it's interesting to think about the idea that when the Series 70 came about, that would be this gun here, this didn't exist. They called this a 70 because of this collet barrel bushing. I'll actually show that to you as an added bonus here. No extra charge. I'm going to take this recoil spring out of here. Okay, put that on the ground where it'll stay. Okay, put the barrel plate now. All right. And that is this little device here. You see that? It's got those fingers on there, and those fingers, when it locks up, tightens the barrel up. That was their answer for, sloppy fit and finish. Instead of retooling, they just came up with that. I don't recommend removing that all the time. And the reason I removed it the way I just did, which I'm not going to show you, which is the Browning high power method. In some cases, they say where you kind of move it to the notch and pop that out first and then remove the whole slide. It's a little noisier, but that way you're reducing the wear on rotating that all the time. But I've had a few of those. Those are more collectible items for me, not necessarily just run 1,000 rounds every time I go out or anything like that. Although I do shoot them, enjoy them. Never had any of the fingers break off. I've heard of that. But anyway, now we're just getting on to all kinds of other subjects away from what we were originally talking about, Series 80.